Hello everybody, and welcome back to another video. Today we are reading His Reasons. It's a Todoroki X-Rated fanfic by AshleyH713. I lost the notebook, but I'm pretty sure this is part 14. Pretty sure. Gotta go hunt down that stupid notebook I had everything written down in. Today we are reading, that's not the notebook. Season 2, Chapter 14. I don't really have a whole lot of time to do more than that. I was gonna record 2 videos today, but shit went on later than I thought it was going to. And I'm extra tired now. Found the notebook, by the way. Yep. This is part 14. It'll be posted the 25th, so in a couple days. Yeah, I think that's all I needed to cover. Let's begin. Season 2, Chapter 14. Later that night, Amari, Todoroki, and Endeavor traveled to Hosa, that's how I want to say it, to patrol. Apparently, there was a sting of killings around the area recently, and they called the number 2 hero to check the area out. Stepping onto the street, Amari felt the bustling noise of the city. After so many years, that dream of being a hero was closer and closer now. It couldn't help but make her smile. Endeavor felt a hand on his shoulder, only to find Katsu staring at him. "Are you sure about this? Letting Bakugo come? It could be dangerous." But the man only sighed. "A promise is a promise. Regardless of how I feel, just make sure she doesn't die. It will look poor on our agency." Katsu nodded his head in exasperation, watching the boss walk up to the student. "And that goes the same for you, child. Don't do anything that will disgrace my family name." Although Amari just rolled her eyes, whispering to Todoroki quietly and sarcastically, "Your father is just as charming as ever today." Todoroki couldn't help but smirk at that, messing with the strap on his hero suit. The amount of guts she had for calling out his father was impressive. "I'd like to say that you'd get used to it, but I can't." She smirked back at his jab, pushing his shoulder lightly when Endeavor's voice returned. "Did you hear me, Bakugo?" To which Amari just groaned, Yeah, I heard you the first time." Endeavor couldn't help but notice her disinterest and narrowed his eyes. "You would do well to respect your superiors." But the girl could only chuckle at him, flipping her hair behind her shoulder. "And you would do well to stop acting like a jerk all the time. I get it already. I'll play by the rules." The other sidekicks around them widened their eyes at the disrespect, although it seemed Endeavor was used to it by now. "As long as you understand. Shoto, will you go with Katsu around the north side, as I'll babysit Bakugo on the south?" Mari couldn't help but feel surprised and yet slightly annoyed at that. "Why do I have to be with you?" Although Todoroki's father only replied plainly, "Because I don't trust you." His remark bothered her, but she supposed she should have been glad for him allowing her to be here in the first place at all. She would have to deal with it. Rude. Crossing her arms across her chest, Todoroki couldn't help but feel a sense of worry in his stomach. He knew that she told him not to baby her, but he wanted to make sure she was going to be okay. Dealing with his father wasn't going to be fun. He put her light arm... He put an arm to her shoulder before speaking. "Amari, are you going to be alright?" She just nodded her head, giving him a reassuring smile in return. "Yeah, I'll manage, even though your father is a real ray of sunshine." Todoroki didn't seem fully convinced, but let the idea go, knowing that she could handle herself. She did personally train with him the last couple of days. "Let me know if you need anything, and don't try to do anything reckless." Although the words seemed funny to her, smirking back, "I would like to promise that, but have you met me?" She meant it as a joke, but Todoroki knew that she was telling the truth. If something did happen, then she would probably dive headfirst into danger. He had seen it before. Seeing his frown, Amari's face fell, now bringing a hand to his face carefully. Hey, I'll be okay, I promise. I will try not to do anything stupid. He nodded his head at that, now hearing his father call for her loudly. Bakugo, let's go already. Todoroki saw her roll her eyes once more before putting a hand up as a quick goodbye. Looks like that's my cue. See you, Shoto. He replied with the same gesture, slightly hoping that nothing would happen and that she'd be okay with his father. What wishful thinking that was at the time. My eyeballs have been hurting the past couple days. Endeavor and Amari walked to the south side of the town in utter silence, the atmosphere so thick that you could cut it with a knife. It was obvious that they hated each other. That was until he spoke. You know, there is something that has really been bothering me the last couple days. Glancing off to the side, Amari answered politely. What, you finally realized what a terrible person you are? Endeavor narrowed his eyes at her response, brushing it off. No. I've looked into you, Bakugo Amari. It seems during your time overseas you attended a non-hero academy, correct? Amari's eyes widened at that, now stopping dead in her tracks. What was he digging up? So what? You've been stalking me? I thought you said I wasn't good enough for your son. Why do you care so much then? He answered back almost immediately. Don't be mistaken. I firmly believe that you are still not worthy enough from the Todoroki line. I suppose I was only curious to see where you gained your reckless behavior and attitude from. Feeling a tiny sense of anxiety in her stomach, Amari tried to brush it off. I'm so glad you can justify your stalking. I'm going to tell you this only once. Don't dig into my past. Endeavor could tell that she was uncomfortable with the conversation, pushing her even further. Why? Is there something you're ashamed of? Her eyes widened even more, feeling the sweat start to accumulate on her face. I don't know what you're talking about. But Todoroki's father wouldn't stop, turning to face her. There was something this girl was hiding. Something wasn't right about her. What about the fact you went missing for an entire month, undocumented, before coming back unharmed? Her face grew sullen then, Mari's breathing picking up at a rapid pace. Flashes of terrible and horrible memories rushed back to her all at once, her skin feeling like it was on fire. Stop it. Endeavor only stepped closer, though, not giving her an inch. What are you hiding, Bakugo Amari? She opened her mouth to deny his words when suddenly a loud explosion filled the entire space, the two just missing the blast zone. Amari's eyes widened at the giant winged monster appeared. As a giant winged monster appeared through the ash, the sound of screams and panic now evident in the area. She then recognized the monster immediately. It was the same creature as the USJ attack. It was Anomu. People started to push past her in a hurry as the reality crashing down around her. This wasn't a lesson or training. This was real. Hosu was under attack. The building in front of her blasted to life in a heavy inferno. Seeing a couple people running out of the structure, then Amari realized something. There may be people still inside. Already feeling her legs start to move, Amari turned towards the building when her arm was caught by Endeavor. What do you think? Where do you think you're going? Frowning back, Amari tried to rip her arm away, only thinking about the people in the burning building. There are people in there. We have to do something. Although Todoroki's father didn't seem pleased. No, you will stay here and let the pro-heroes take care of it. You are only an intern. He had a point. She was only a kid, but Amari knew she couldn't just stand by when people were in trouble. That's not what a hero was. I don't care. I have to do something. I didn't bust my ass just to stand here helpless. Turning away from Todoroki's father, she couldn't help but stop when he spoke back, rough and angry. Bakugo, if you disregard my orders, then your internship is over. Amari froze then, thinking about her options. She very well could have just listened and stood by, but then what would happen to those people? What if there were only a moment before their life and death? She couldn't just stand by then. Screw the internship. Screw being respected by Todoroki's father. Amari knew she couldn't just stand there. Then it would be like nothing had changed since she was a child. Who cares if it ruined her reputation? She was a Bakugo after all, damn it. Balling her hands into tight fists, Amari made her decision, speaking back to Endeavor roughly. Standing here isn't what a hero would do. Then she ran off towards the building, causing Todoroki's father to shout after her aggressively. He was responsible for her after all, and she was about to get herself killed. Bakugo! Although Amari couldn't hear anything, only focused on the door in front of her. She then plopped 3 pills into her mouth before taking a large breath of courage. She could do this. Pushing past the flame, she ascended the steps only to find a family of 5 huddled in the corner, scared and petrified. Suddenly, a large beam crashed towards them, but Amari was quicker, allowing her gold matter to appear in front of them, creating a protective shield. They seemed confused by the action, only to lock eyes with the girl. "Are you okay? Come on, I'm going to get you out of here." The youngest girl went to grab her hand when the ground shook heavily, the floorboards spitting apart with a crying yell. Then she saw it. There was a Nomu in here. Narrowing her eyes, Amari covered the family with a protective dome before whispering back to them, "Stay behind me. I'll finish this." Just then, the Nomu made eye contact with the girl, now barreling towards her all at once. This really was like the USJ incident. It swung a fist down, but Amari was able to dodge it, causing another hole in the floor. She had to be careful. This monster was acting mindless, which meant it probably didn't know it was destroying the building at the same time. The Nomu ran at her again while a large beam flew down towards her. Blasting it away with her explosion quirk, she could vaguely hear the children screaming in terror at the sight, and Amari knew she had to finish this quickly. The scream caught the attention of the Nomu, now focusing its sights on them and pounding against Amari's protective dome aggressively. Crap, this was bad. She needed to get the attention off the family, and fast. Running past the creature, she got a plan. "Hey you, come get me!" And then Amari then picked up a small piece of wood and threw it at its body, causing it to give out a loud animalistic scream. That's it. It charged toward her all at once, but before his fist collided with her body, Amari moved out of the way, causing the monster's hand to be caught in a floorboard for a moment. That was all she needed, though, as the girl then put her hand out and closing the Nomu in a dome quickly, causing the family's protective barrier to disappear. That wasn't going to hold it long. Amari ignored the discomfort in her chest as it pounded against her quirk, choosing to grasp one of the kids' hands. "Come on, let's go." They followed her quickly, heading down the stairs while trying to avoid the fire around them. Luckily, Amari was able to cover them so they wouldn't breathe in the smoke. She wasn't so lucky, though, as her quirk could only hold so much. Using her explosions, Amari burst through the front door that was barricaded with wood, leading the family into the street, now coughing slightly from the little smoke they did catch. Amari looked back towards the building then, noticing a pro off to her right-hand side. "Hey, take them. I tried to cover the smoke, but I think some seeped in." The hero seemed to understand, carefully covering the family when he noticed Amari coughing rather heavily as well. "You should get checked out as well, miss." But Amari just shook her head, focusing on other matters. A little smoke wouldn't kill her. "No, I'm fine. Just take care of them." Wiping her face of some of the ash, the family turned back to her quickly, the mother extending her hand in tears. Thank you so much. You saved us. What's your name, miss?" She looked down at her hands, then before smiling. They didn't know who she was. She never cared about recognition anyway. "Don't worry about it." The woman blinked in surprise as the girl then disappeared around the corner. The children with her just beamed in awe at the display they just witnessed. "Mommy, she was like a superhero, like an ember, right?" The mother just nodded her head in response, grateful for the mysterious stranger that had saved their life. Running down the street, Amari stopped when her phone binged to life in her back pocket. It was odd. No one usually called her. She took out the object and flipped it open to find Deku had sent some kind of message. It looked to be his location. Turning her head in confusion, Amari eyed the address only to realize it was a couple blocks from her. A big pit of anxiety started to rise up at the realization. Was Midoriya also in Hosa? And why had he sent just his location? It was rather odd thing to do for him to do. Not liking the feeling, Amari decided to check it out. Maybe it was nothing, but she needed to make sure her friend was all right. Running down towards the location, she couldn't help but freeze at this display before her. Deku and Ida were lying on the ground with rather large pools of blood surrounding the class representative. What had even happened? She stopped thinking when a man standing in front of her turned around, his blade shining in the sun. "Oh, and who might you be? Another fake hero?" Deku struggled to look up at his words, finding Amari before him. "Amari-chan, don't let him cut you. That's how he activates his quirk." Eyeing him carefully, Amari spoke back, already trying to buy some time so she could figure out her plan. "You must be the hero killer, right? I'm going to have to ask you to step away from my friends." Stain blinked in surprise at this, slightly amused by her tone. "I don't think you're in position to order me around, fake hero. So what, are you going to try and save them like this one did? You are all so predictable." Amaya remained silent at that, putting 3 more pills in her hand before swallowing them. "Call me what you want, but I can't let you kill them." Then she raced forward, intent in her step. Amari honestly wasn't sure if she could beat him, but she knew she had to try. Deku and Ida were depending on her right now. Stain lifted his blade up, hoping to catch it on her body, but was surprised when it seemed to just bounce off her. Her quirk was interesting. Amari took this chance and tried to make him drop the sword by placing a burning hand to his arm as a pass by, causing him to gasp in surprise. It wasn't enough to loosen his hold, though, now trying a new approach and attempting to knock him off his feet. Running past him again, Amari jumped up in the air before letting her explosion quirk come to life, landing hits towards his face. Stain stumbled back a couple steps as she then focused on her friends, already trying to help Deku up. Midoriya, are you okay? Here, we have to go. Deku remained frozen, willing his body to move when a flash of light caused him to shout at her. Amari-chan, look out! She had just enough time to register his cry as Stain flew his blade down towards her back, Amari just barely blocking the blow with her quirk. Groaning at the impact, she let her palm light up once more, aiming and knocking him out long enough to drag Deku, Ida, and that pro-hero to safety. She just had to focus. Amari raised her hand up, throwing an explosion in his direction, only to find the man completely gone. Where'd he go? Suddenly she felt a sharp pain in her side, along with a crying shout from Ida and Deku. Amari! Jumping away from his blade, Amari clutched her side in pain, falling to her knees at the shock. Crap, he got her, unexpectedly. Crap. Stain chuckled at this, looking at the blood on his blade carefully. Good attempt. I admire your strength. Maybe you're good enough to stay alive after all. Then he stuck his tongue out and licked the liquid, causing Amari to freeze up. It was just like with Shinso's quirk. She suddenly wasn't able to move anymore. Just then, Stain frowned, staring at the blood on the blade in confusion. This blood. He touched a bit of the red liquid before shaking his head, now an air of absolute intent in his stance. Now I see, such dirty blood. You are the kind of hero I hate the most. Amari's eyes widened as Stain raced toward her, swinging his blade down towards her. You deserve to die, after all. Closing her eyes in fear, Amari waited for the impact when a huge burst of fire flew past them, causing Stain to freeze. Blinking in surprise, her eyes focused on Todoroki standing a couple feet away from her. Sorry, Emily, it took a couple minutes to figure out what you were saying, Midoriya. Don't worry, the pros are coming. He then stepped his foot forward, causing the ice to rise above Deku, Ida, and Amari, allowing them to slide behind him slowly. I won't let you kill these guys, hero killer. Struggling to move his body, Deku spoke out. Todoroki, you can't let him taste your blood. That's how his quirk works. Todoroki took in the information carefully, eyeing Amari, who was also frozen and bleeding from the side. So it's fine if I keep my distance, then. Just as he said that, though, a bundle of knives flew past him, cutting the boy on the cheek. You have good friends. Swinging his sword down, Todoroki quickly blocked him with a sheet of ice. This was going to be way harder than he thought. This guy was no joke. Amari watched Todoroki fight, feeling utterly useless. Why weren't her limbs listening to her? Why couldn't she get back up? She had to. Amari Bakugo wasn't one to give up. Willing everything within her, she caught Midoriya's eyes, seeing his fingers begin to twitch slowly. It seemed his paralyzation was wearing off. There must be a time limit. She chose to stay silent about it, and watched him slowly rise from the floor without Stain noticing before throwing a punch in his direction, hitting him in the jaw. If Amari could smile, she told her they would have in the situation. It seemed they had gained the upper hand again. Deku moved next to Todoroki after the blow, carefully planning the next attack. They would have to work together to protect Amari and Ida from this guy. I think it's our best course of action is to hold him off long enough as a far distance until the pros can get here. At a far distance until the pros can get here. Todoroki couldn't help but eye Amari then, catching the blood leaking from her side. Whatever it was, they had to do it quickly. Who knows how hurt she could be. Alright, although it will be risky. Let's hope they get here soon. Amari noticed his staring then, hearing his voice echo in her ear. Amari, are you alright? He sounded extremely worried, so in response she tried to quell his anxiety as much as possible, answering back smoothly. Honestly, she didn't know how bad her injuries was because in this moment she could only feel numb from Stain's quirk. But it's not like he needed to know that. Yeah, I'm fine. Don't worry about me. It's just a little cut. Todoroki's stance softened then, although still very much on edge. He silently knew this feeling wouldn't go away until he saw for himself that she was fine. Ida watched everything with hollow eyes, unsure why his friends were risking their lives like this for him. They should have just run away and let him handle it. It was his fault, after all, for not being strong enough. Shouting back to them, he cried out, Everyone, what are you doing? Although Todoroki and Deku ignored him, already aiming their quirks at Stain, who seemed amused. 2 against 1? Huh? Interesting. Running at full speed, Deku threw a fist down, only to collide with Stain's blade, cutting him in the leg lightly. He groaned at this, falling from the impact when Todoroki blinded the villain with his fire. They were really in over their heads. Stain didn't seem to enjoy this move either, now aiming his swords towards Todoroki all at once, causing the boy to falter. He was too fast. Widening his eyes in terror, Ida shouted out roughly, Please, stop it! Suddenly the blade stopped a couple inches from Todoroki's face, now blocking now blocked by a wall of solid gold matter. He sharply turned his head over to Amari, who was shakily getting to her feet, a couple drops of blood leaking from her side as she went. It looked like it physically pained her to fight against Stain's quirk. Gritting her teeth, Amari shouted towards Ida in complete and utter determination. If you want it to stop, then you have to do something about it. The world isn't going to play nice with you, Ida. You just need to be strong enough to take it. Even the villain himself seemed confused by her mobility. How is that possible? You should be paralyzed. Is it because of your dirty blood? Frowning at his term, Amari hissed back. I don't know what the hell you're talking about. The look of confusion on her face was evident, causing Stain to reply. Of course you do. How does it feel to masquerade as a hero, to selfishly use that title for your own purposes? The term hero has been stained because of people like you, you know? Taking another step forward, her friends could clearly see the intent in her stare. Like I said, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm not masquerading as anything. I will be a hero, regardless of what you say. Growling under his breath, Stain didn't seem pleased by her answer, barreling towards her all at once, his power overwhelming. We'll see about that. Mari gritted her teeth in pain, prepared to dodge when Todoroki shoved himself in front of her, throwing ice spikes in his direction and making Stain retreat back a couple feet. Amari. Once he was further back, Todoroki sighed heavily, glancing back to the girl. Can you please stop trying to aggravate the villain? You can't even fight with that wound. His words only made her frown, answering back sarcastically. You underestimate me. I said I was fine. There's nothing. Trust me. Let him come at me. I can still fight. Although Todoroki was not impressed in the slightest, still standing in front of her like a shield. Amari, now is really not the time for your reckless behavior. Just stay behind me and... But before he could finish that sentence, Amari was already running away from her shield, aiming an explosion at Stain. As if I would do that. The explosion blew across the alley, catching Stain's aim, focusing him to jump back even further. This seemed to piss him off even more. Ida then watched as Stain grabbed the poor girl and threw her into the wall next to them, hearing a hard impact of the action. Why were they doing this? It was so obvious they couldn't win. Realizing his eyes filling with tears, Ida poured out his feelings, wishing that they all would just stop. I don't want this. I don't want you to bleed for me. Why can't you be like my brother? Why can't I be like my brother? Why can't I be strong like him? Amari groaned at the impact, vaguely hearing his words and sensing a sort of deja vu in them. She couldn't help but think of Katsuki in this moment. She understood Ida's feelings more than anyone. Holding her head in pain, she shouted back to him roughly. If you don't want this, then stand up already and fight. Who cares if you aren't stronger than your brother? That doesn't give you an excuse to give up. Suddenly, a hand wrapped around her throat, and Amari was lifted into the air. Now gasping and struggling for breath, she looked into her captive's eyes. Such noble words for a fake hero. Todoroki saw this and felt a huge wave of anger in his stomach, already aiming a blast of fire towards the villain, although he couldn't use it without hurting Amari, as they were in the same path. Get your hands off her, although Stain only smiled, bringing the poor girl up to his face. He knew that Todoroki couldn't do anything about it, which only made him even more joyful. What's wrong? Don't want to hurt your friend? What an admirable... Jesus Christ, come on. Help me here. What an admirable quality. Amari struggled and gasped for air, now feeling her eyesight slowly disappear. She couldn't die like this. She needed to be there for Katsuki. Katsuki, still. No, please, not like this. Staring with feared eyes, suddenly the pressure disappeared altogether, the girl falling to the floor in a gasp of breath, now holding her throat and struggling for air. What just happened? She blinked her eyes quickly, only to find Ida standing in front of her, now breathing heavily as well. He did it. He finally broke out of Stain's hold and saved her. I'm so sorry, Bakugo. I won't allow any of you to shed any more blood for me. Turning towards him, she couldn't help but smile, although it was more of a grimace in her state. She tried to speak to him, but found it difficult over her coughing. Although the fight wasn't over, as Stain stumbled back on his feet, intent in his stance. Ida eyed the situation carefully, now coming up with a plan. He's flustered? Now's the time. We have to attack him all at once. I don't think he'll be able to take it. Deku leaned against the wall, watching Amari struggle to her feet with concern. All right, but I don't know if Amari-chan can, although he was only caught off by the girl herself, seeming annoyed. Her breathing came out shallow and shaky, but he could just barely make out her words. Let's do it. I can fight. No one else wasn't sure about that, but she seemed stubborn enough about that idea, so they didn't interject. Even Todoroki didn't say anything, knowing very well that she was being reckless. It seemed this was the only way they could win right now. He just hoped she would be fine. Suddenly, Stain jumped in the air only for Deku to do the same, starting their plan. Now! Ida then also followed suit, rising to the same distance as Deku, now with hard intent in his eyes. He wouldn't let his brother and his friends attack her get away so easily. I won't let you hurt anyone anymore. All at once, both their legs collided with Stain, causing him to groan in pain at the pain and shock. That wasn't it. They had an opening. Then, before he could react, Todoroki shot him with a fire blast, only for Amari to do the same with her explosion. This caused one giant fiery explosion, so much so that Stain couldn't dodge it. Deku and Ida closed their eyes, ready to hit the ground, only to be stopped by Amari's shield, gently lowering them to the floor all at once. Ignoring the strain on her body, she couldn't think about that now. Once they were safe, the four kids gazed at the unconscious hero killer and breathed out a heavy breath of anxiety. They really did it. They knocked him out. Todoroki then already started looking around the area in play. We need a rope or something to tie him up. Midoriya, start removing his weapons. They all did what they were told before pulling the villain towards the busy street, hoping to meet up with a few pro heroes on the way. Todoroki eyed Amari worriedly, who noticed his staring inside. Stop it with the puppy dog look. I'm fine. I've had worse than this. Although he wasn't so sure, watching her breathe more shallow than normal. Who knows how deep that cut went, and she was agitating it. Promise me you'll go get it checked out. She thought for a moment only to smile under her breath, now noticing a few heroes running in her direction. All right, Mom, I promise. As they approached, the kids told them everything, handing Stain over to the pros to be detained, all while Deku's teacher scolded him for being in a dangerous situation. Amari could only imagine what Endeavor would say after all this. She stopped thinking when Ida appeared in front of them, bowing his head in devastation. I'm so sorry, everyone. You were injured because of me. I just couldn't see anything through my anger. Amari only smiled back, though, lightly pressing her hand to his shoulder. Hey, come on. This is all part of being a hero anyways. Deku seemed understanding as well towards his words. I'm sorry too, Ida-kun. Even though you were feeling so concerned, I didn't notice at all. Closing his eyes as the tears leaked out, Ida wondered where he could have gotten such understanding friends, even though everything was his fault. Amari patted his back in response, trying to ease his stress and worry. Everything was over after all. Well, that's what they thought anyways. I want to do it dramatically, but I'm not going to, because I don't want to wake everyone else up in the house. Suddenly, a Nomu appeared out of nowhere, reaching down and aiming for Deku with its claws outstretched wild. Midoriya, look out! Amari saw this, and without thinking, pushed herself in front of the monster, causing its long talon to dig into her wound and carry her away towards the sky. Amari-chan! Todoroki's eyes widened at the action, already aiming his quirk for the monster in a fit of rage and anger. Amari, get your dirty hands off her! Just then, before they could react, Stain leaped forwards in surprise, licking some of the Nomu's blood and smiling. No, this one's mine. The monster suddenly started to plummet to the earth, causing Amari to gasp and force her hands on its talon. Why was its grip so tight? She then felt a hand rip her away, grabbing her waist roughly and pulling her to the ground in one fell swoop. She was about to thank the stranger until Amari realized who it was. Stain. Widening her eyes, she then watched Stain plunge his dagger into the Nomu's skull, killing it instantly and spilling a few drops of blood onto her face. He just killed that thing like it was nothing. The man was terrifying. Deku, Todoroki, and Ida, and the rest of the heroes gasped at the scene as well, now seeing Stain force Amari onto the ground with his hand. He's got a hostage. They wanted to use their quirks, but the range was too risky, as they would surely hit the girl as well. They had to wait and plan their moves, which enraged Todoroki especially. He didn't want this. Stain chuckled at the remains of the Nomu before picking the girl up by her arms. Amari struggled underneath him. He seemed to have trouble standing as well. I must finish the job. All fake heroes must be stained in blood. He then leapt into the air and disappeared out of sight, causing Todoroki's stomach to drop automatically. Oh god, who knows what the manic could do to her. He didn't even want to think about it. Amari! The other heroes seemed distressed as well. Everyone split up. We have to find the hostage before he kills her. Someone, contact Endeavor. They all started to scatter then, Deku eyeing Todoroki in fear. He must have been wrecked. It's okay, Todoroki. We'll find her. Although the boy didn't seem eased by his comment, only watching Todoroki's fire side ignite with absolute anger and fury. He would hunt that bastard down if it was the last thing he did. She would be okay. She just had to be. Getting out of the public view, Stain stumbled into a nearby alleyway before shoving Amari against the wall. Absolute intent in his eyes. Now I can finish the job. He took out a small knife then, a small ring of terror echoing in her throat. I don't understand. Why do you keep calling me a fake hero? I haven't done anything wrong. You don't even know anything about me. Stain seemed amused by her sentence, though, running a finger across his blade. Hold on, you really don't know, do you? You don't know how much of a monster you really are. Fighting against his hand roughly, Amari replied, That's what I've been trying to say. You're wrong about me. He noticed her defiance and frowned, pushing the girl roughly back so she couldn't struggle. Oh, I know exactly what kind of person you are from the moment I tasted you. What's sad is that you don't know. You and your dirty blood. You really let them destroy you like that without knowing the consequences? Widening her eyes, Amari whispered back, What are you? But Stain only continued, speaking low and roughly. You don't even know what's coming, do you? That fool's secret weapon is going on right under your noses, and you have no idea what it is. You really are a naive little villain. At the word villain, Amari's eyes widened. Shut up, I am not a villain. Although Stain only chuckled at her declaration. You don't think you are, and that's the worst kind of villain. One that pretends to be a hero, all while ignoring the corruption in your heart. She narrowed her eyes in confusion when suddenly she heard Todoroki's voice call out to her. He sounded scared and small. She needed to answer back, to let him know where she was. Opening her mouth, Amari cried out loudly as possible, Shoto! But she wasn't able to finish her sentence, as a rough hand covered her mouth, pushing her even further into the wall. Now his eyes, they were piercing hers with such hatred and disgust. It was like she couldn't move. Leaning closer, Stain spoke low and threatening, his blade now dangerously close to her face. I must cleanse the world right now, or else that fool will come for you. I will take back what it means to be your hero, one step at a time. Amari's eyes widened. For the first time in her life, she felt fear. Absolute and complete fear of the man before her. No one knew where she was, and she couldn't fight anymore, as her pills had worn off by now. She was trapped under his power and strength. Was this how she was going to die? She always thought it would be because of her pills, not because of a murderer. She wasn't ready to go like this. She needed to see Katsuki one more time. She needed to tell Todoroki that she loved him. There was so much she wasn't able to do, and yet it seemed like the end was approaching faster than before. His knife started to come down then, Amari shutting her eyes in absolute terror when suddenly everything stopped. Stain's hand fell to the side slowly, causing his knife to clatter to the ground and free her from being pressed against the wall. That's when she noticed a large wound in his side. Stain was no longer breathing or moving. Was he dead? The realization sunk in as Amari felt her legs give out, sliding to the floor in total and complete shock. She was alive somehow. Suddenly a hand touched her shoulder, only to find Todoroki staring at her worriedly. His words, they sounded so far away and distant. Amari, are you okay? What's wrong? What happened? She knew she had to answer him, but found it difficult, the shock still not dissipating from her eyes. All she could accomplish was a small head nod, showing him she was fine. But that was the question, wasn't it? Was she really fine? After the events of that night, everyone was brought to the hospital to get checked out. Amari luckily only suffered from a bruised windpipe, a small side wound, and a couple broken ribs, although it sucked even more knowing that she couldn't be healed like everyone else. Todoroki and Deku had just gone to the cafeteria to get food when the door slammed open suddenly, revealing someone she wished wasn't there. Endeavor? He moved up to her, an unseen aura of anger around him. I told you not to embarrass the Todoroki name. You disgraceful child. Why couldn't you have followed my orders? Not in the mood for his games, Amari sighed heavily. That's not really my style. Endeavor didn't seem pleased, though, crossing his arms in disgust. Because of your reckless antics, I had to take the fall for allowing you to run into dangerous combat and injure yourself. Can't you do anything right? Lightly touching her arm, she replied back. If I hadn't run to the burning building, then the family might have been dead, and my friends would have been hurt. I don't regret my choices. Frowning back, Endeavor spoke. Your choices have expelled you from your internship. You'll never be a hero if you just run headfirst into dangerous situations. You aren't the only one that suffered because of your poor choice. It seems you are still an unruly child. He then turned away before calling back to her. I already told you, I'm not a babysitter. Amari let her eyes fall at his words. She hated to admit it, but he was right in a sense. She should have been able to fight Stain better, but instead she could only act like a helpless idiot. She really did bring everyone down. Endeavor opened the door only to find Todoroki and Deku staring at him unhappily. What was he doing here? Todoroki was especially curious. Why are you here? Staring at his son, his father only answered back plainly. No reason. I only wanted to finish my business with Bakugo, as she expelled herself from my internship program. The boy's eyes widened at this, Todoroki fighting back. Are you kidding me? Amari saved so many people back there. You can't expel her. Although, what surprised them the most was when Amari answered back, sounding rather defeated. It's fine, Shoto. I knew what I was doing when I disobeyed his orders. Now I have to live with the consequences. Endeavor started to smile at this, thinking he was finally getting something right. At least you understand that much. Yet his smile dropped soon after she spoke again. Don't be mistaken. I will still be a hero. I just don't need your validation and permission to be one. That's not going to stop me in the slightest. He stood still for a moment before shaking his head in disappointment and leaving the room silently. This girl was too stubborn for her own good. It would clearly kill her someday for sure. Once he was gone, Todoroki moved up to her as he plopped himself down on the bed silently. Is that okay? Being expelled will put a poor mark on your record. Although she only smiled, patting the space next to her. Nah, it's okay. I wasn't aiming for anything long term. Anyways, and that's not why I picked his agency in the first place. It's enough that I got him to seriously recognize me. That's all I wanted. Her goals were so simple and plain, not wanting to think about becoming a long-time pro hero, but rather living in the moment and breaking all the barriers she could. Suddenly the door slammed open again, only for Amari's breath to catch in her throat. It was her brother. He looked absolutely terrified, like he had just ran to Hosa all at once. Amari. Blinking her eyes in surprise, Amari tried to act natural, smiling back happily. Katsuki, it's nice to see you. But Bakugo had other plans, eyeing her bandaged side and frowning, already stomping up to her. You idiot, what the hell were you thinking? You look like a goddamn mess. Putting a hand at the back of her head, Amari only laughed nervously. Oh, come on, Katsuki, it's not that bad. Nothing I can't handle. Deku tried to quell his anger then, stepping towards him carefully. Yeah, Kachan, Amari-chan was really cool. She saved Ida and I from the hero killer. You should go easy on her. Although this didn't ease him at all, only getting him more worked up. Why in the hell was she fighting a murderer without him? Shut up, Deku! How can I go easy on this brat when she keeps making trouble for me? She deserves to know how much of an idiot she is. Staring at his face, Amari took in his features, missing him all at once. Yes, he was yelling at her, but she somehow knew it was from a place of love. Suddenly, Stain's red, bloodshot eyes flashed in her mind, and Amari couldn't help but feel choked up in hearing her brother's voice again. She thought she would never hear it. I'm so glad to see you, Katsuki. He noticed her scratchy tone, only to turn back to her. What the hell is your problem? Amari then realized she must have seemed really strange, and tried to clean herself up in front of her brother. What would he think if he saw her like this? Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. I'm sorry. I really will. I'm sorry. Bakugo watched her breathing grow more rapid as he noticed the repeated words, suddenly not happy with them. Hey, what did I say about the damn apologizing? Quit it. She knew she had to stop it. She knew he wouldn't like her weak side, so Amari tried best to pull herself together, ignoring the tears in her eyes. I'm sorry, just give me a minute. I can be better. I can be stronger. I'm sorry. Katsuki watched in surprise as his sister started to fall apart in front of him, continuing to constantly apologize through her raspy voice. Did she really think he would be bothered by her tears? That she needed to be strong in front of him? Of course, he made a comment about it, but it wasn't meant to be taken seriously. Putting a hand out to touch her shoulder, he spoke, now feeling uncomfortable. Hey, I said quit it. Nodding her head, her tears started to fall onto her cheeks. Right, I'm sorry. I'm better than this. Bakugo is better than this. She then placed a shaky hand out to her face, voicing the fears that she had been keeping since her encounter with the stain. It's just... thought I'd never see you again. I'm so happy to hear your voice, Katsuki. Bakugo's eyes widened at her words, now extremely worried for what this girl had faced. She wasn't usually like this. Did something scare her? Suddenly forgetting the other two people around them, Bakugo knew he had to quell her cries or else they wouldn't ever stop. Hey, what nonsense are you saying? Then he carefully wrapped his arms around her shaking body, pulling her close even though he was mildly uncomfortable. This was new to him. I'm not going anywhere, stupid. It's okay if you want to cry. I won't think you're weak, okay? Registering her words, Amari then wrapped her arms around his waist, taking in his warmth and comfort all at once. She needed to be sure that he was still here, that she hadn't died back in that alleyway. God fucking damn it. Okay. Tensing at the action, Bakugo didn't pull away, only patted her head softly as she muttered in his chest. For the first time in my life, I realized that I don't want to die. Blinking in surprise, her words brought a new wave of worries to him, wondering exactly what she's been feeling for the past years. But those thoughts and conversation would have to wait until another time. Now he just needed to be there for her. Ow. Okay, I'm tired. Something tells me that took longer than it should have. I got more studying to do tomorrow, so I should get some sleep. Check her out. She's a good writer. I like her stuff. I don't think there's anything else I need to say. So, you will hear me in the next video. Bye-bye.